Alright, hey everyone out there in Banjo Land, Mike Heading here. Today's lesson is going to be talking about the G major scale. And having a little bit of knowledge about scales is really important to be able to communicate with other musicians, understand how melodies work, and to be able to find melodies quickly on your banjo. So we're going to talk about finding that scale in open position, finding it melodically, and then doing it closed position without open strings so you can play it all over the neck. We're also going to talk about adapting that scale to the Scruggs style. So how do I use some of those scale ideas with a right hand roll? We're also going to talk about folded scales and some scale patterns that are going to help you create melodic ideas. And then lastly, we're going to talk about ear training and beginning to improvise. So how do intervals work? So that's the distance between two notes. And how do I take those scale ideas and play through a set of chord changes like a G, C, D, and how do I adapt that G major scale to improvise over each of those chords? So this is a big topic and we're going to get into it. I'm going to break it all down and then give you a bunch of practice tips. Alright, here it is. Alright, so let's start with the basic G major scale. We're going to use as many open strings as possible for our first example. So let's start with our open third string, that's our G. Our second note's going to be on the second fret of the third string. Then open second string, first fret second string, open first string, second fret first string, fourth fret first string, and then open fifth string. Let's go back down those notes. Fifth string, open fifth string, fourth fret first string, second fret first string, open first string, first fret second string, open second string, second fret third string, and then open third string. Go a little faster. Don't worry too much about what you're doing with your right hand, whether you're doing all thumbs or thumb index, thumb middle, whatever you want to do. Just work on the left hand notes at first. One more time. So that's our basic G major scale. So let's give each of those a number, 1 through 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So those are our numbers of the scale. So we're going to use those numbers to communicate a lot of things to other musicians and to ourselves. And if you've heard of like a 1-4-5 progression, for example, it's a very common bluegrass progression. Where they're getting those numbers from is from the notes of the scale. So our 1 is our G. If we count up to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's a C note. So that's our C chord is our 4. And if we count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's a D note. So that's our D chord. So knowing those numbers is really important because that's how we're going to communicate a lot of things, one, to other musicians, and that's how we're going to figure out how the notes work together in our scale. So count 1 through 8, and it's really important to learn the major scale first, and all the other ones, pentatonics, minor, you know, all those are just kind of variations of the major scale. So it's important to learn the major scale first, and all the other kind of scales are just modifications of the basic major scale. So one more time, and remember you can stay on it for different lengths of time once you get it down, you know. Remember, our scale is just our potential notes, so you don't have to stay in them all for equal amounts of time. Mix the notes up in any order you can. That's where we're going to get our melodies from, and that's where we're going to eventually be able to start improvising, and we're going to talk about that more in this lesson. So that's the basic G major scale. Play it up and down as many times as you need to get the notes down, and just rewind the video if you need to. So one more thing we should talk about with our scale is we have our 8 notes, 1 through 8. But 3 of those notes actually are called the chord tones. So those are what's going to make up the chord of the scale that we're associating with. So if we take our open strings, our 3rd string, 2nd string, and 1st string, those notes are in our first example. They're actually in both examples, and those are called our chord tones. So it's the 1, the 3, and the 5 of the scale. So if we count up 1, that's our first note, 2, 3, and then 4, 5. So those are our chord tones, the 1, 3, and the 5 of the scale. In our example in G major, they happen to be our open strings because our banjo is tuned to an open chord. So we're tuned to a G, so that it makes sense that the chord tones would be in the open chord because those are the notes that actually make up the chord. So really important to remember that, the 1, 3, and the 5. The other notes in the scale are called passing tones. So those are the notes that basically connect the chord tones together. So we got 1, here's a passing tone, 2, chord tone, passing tone, chord tone, passing tone, and chord tone. So you can use any of the notes in the scale, but the chord tones are probably going to be the ones that sound the best with that particular chord. So if someone's playing a G, I could play any of those notes in the scale, but the chord tones are going to sound the best. And a lot of melodies and improvisation is using chord tones and passing tones and connecting them together in an interesting way. That's a lot of melodies are built on that, and a lot of improvisation is built on that idea of chord tones and passing tones. So remember, it's just our 1, 3, and 5 of the scale. And in our example in G, it happens to be our open strings because we're tuned to G. So now let's look at a closed position of that G major scale. We've used all open strings up until this point. Now let's take all those notes and fret them so we can move the scale around once we got it. Okay, so our first note's going to be on the 5th fret of the 4th string with our pinky. And then 2nd fret, 3rd string. 4th fret, 3rd string with your 3rd finger. Pinky on the 5th fret of the 3rd string. 3rd fret, 2nd string. 5th fret on the 2nd string with your pinky. 4th fret on the 1st string with your 3rd finger. And then 5 with your pinky. So that's good pinky practice. Practicing scales is a really good way to work out your left hand too. So shake it out if your hand, these take some time to build up some strength too. So don't hurt your hand doing this. But that's our closed position scale. So we're using no open strings there, so we can move that around. You can move it up to A. So our root's the first note we start with. So whatever note that is, that's the scale you're doing. You can move it up to C. So knowing the closed position scales is really helpful because you can move it around to whatever key you want. D. Back to G. Same thing with all of our other examples. Mix those notes up in whatever order you want. So I'm just mixing those orders up, mixing those notes up in whatever order I want. One, I'm just working on strengthening my hand, and I'm just working on also hearing how those notes sound together, and we're going to talk about that later in this lesson. Okay, so that's our closed position 1. So our pinky is the root, remember, so wherever you move that pinky, you can do that pattern. Okay, so now that you've got some of the basic scales under your fingers, and remember, take a lot of time moving around those notes and get really familiar jumping around those notes. Remember, your scale is just your potential notes you can use. Let's look at those, how we could adapt kind of a scale idea to a Scruggs style. So we're going to do a basic roll. We're going to hit our thumb on the 3rd string, and then do thumb middle, 5th string, and 1st string. So that's going to be our roll, thumb, and then thumb middle. And we're either going to do that on the 3rd string or on the 2nd string. The only thing that's changing is that first note. Okay, so let's find those same notes and do it with the Scruggs style roll. So we're gonna hit the open third string, and then we're gonna do that alternating thumb back and forth, thumb middle. And then we're gonna hit the second fret, and then up to the open second string, first fret, second string, up to the third fret, second string. Keep your second finger down, go up to the fifth fret. Keep your second finger down, go up to the seventh fret. And then 8. So you got 8, 7, 5, 3, 1, open, 2, open. So our notes of the scale are really way to play a G major scale